Right, let's take you to this story now. Despite an outbreak of bird flu in the Western Cape, your omelette is not under threat just yet. The highly contagious HPAI virus has seen bans on imports from Mexico and other nations. Now, FNB senior agricultural economist Paul Makube joins us now to tell us what this all means for us as consumers. Paul, thank you very much for your time here on ENCA. Now, locally, what does the Western Cape's infections mean in the short or long-term imbalance of supply and demand? Just confirm for us, Paul, if you can still hear us.
I can hear you.
All right, awesome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly now. Thank you. So in terms of the long and short term, there's been an outbreak in Cape Town, and that obviously affects us locally in South Africa, besides the fact that there's been a halt in imports from Mexico and other nations. So in the long and short term, in terms of imbalance of supply and demand, what does it mean for us in South Africa?
Okay, thanks and good afternoon to your viewers. In terms of the short term, we're likely to see a short-term supply, crunch due to the depopulation of those birds in the Western Cape in terms of supply of eggs. But it's not significant enough to cause a massive scare. But in the long term, if we have further outbreaks, that will result in further depopulation of birds. That means that we're likely to see a situation where the supply and demand situation is out of balance, and we're likely to see supply shortages and subsequently an upswing in prices.
Now, the price of eggs overall was impacted, for instance, by the rolling blackouts, right? That hampered production as well and therefore hampered the price. Should we expect prices to worsen now that we have this problem?
In the short term, we're likely to see a slight increase in prices if supplies remain relatively tight. But that is just for the short term. We're not to see a massive outswing, except in situations where, as I said earlier, that we see a further escalation of the situation with more birds being depopulated.
And what should the farmers do to cope if they're not doing it already? I don't know if you're able to give the farmers some advice.
Well, unfortunately, with this kind of disease, it requires quarantine of the property. Apart from the quarantine of property, the birds must be culled. It will take time for the farms to be repopulated. And obviously, this is a precautionary measure to ensure that the country is safe from the spread of the disease, because it has implications. It might result in the import bans of South Africa's exports. Not that they are big, but that can result in import bans. And I think the most important thing is that producers have to ensure that they maintain biosecurity. Strict biosecurity on their properties, especially commercial farms, given the impact that this particular disease has on their operations. With regard to wild birds, it's difficult due to the fact that it's uncontrollable. They move freely, but where you can control, make sure that you maintain those strict biosecurity controls.
So I do remember that the Western Cape, I think this is the second time that it's hit by this particular virus in less than a year or about a year. And now there's the culling of chickens again. Last year it was about 420,000 chickens that had to be culled because of bird flu. Now we understand that it's been 550 chickens that have been culled so far. That's more than 500,000. So in the poultry industry as a whole, chicken and eggs as well, you and I have spoken mostly about eggs, but what does it mean in terms of chicken and with consumers, the stores that actually buy the chicken, as well as the farmers themselves?
Remember, at the moment, it is confined to the Western Cape and also layers, not necessarily broilers, but obviously an outbreak of avian flu, affects the industry broadly.
Yes.
So we have a challenge on the egg side at the moment in terms of the layers. But the eggs are safe to eat, so there's no affected product that is on the shelves at the moment that is impacted by the avian flu. All the birds have been culled, and they are not in circulation. It's safe to eat the eggs and also to eat the chicken meat. So in terms of supplies of broilers, it will continue to to be there in terms of producers being able to supply. In the Western Cape, there'll be imports from various provinces that are not affected by the avian influenza. Obviously, that is the impact that will be there in terms of supplies.